And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus, 106 in the afternoon on this Thursday. Sunny skies, temperatures low to mid 80s across the area. No smoke. That's a nice change. You can actually see the blue sky out there today. I'm Chief Meteorologist Wysocki, along with our weather wonder boy, Justin Storm, and our wonderful, talented Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Good afternoon, guys. How you doing?
Doing well, Dean. How are you?
Doing all right. And where's Bridgette on location now? Good night.
Today I am in Castleton. I just got done walking fields out at the PTI North Dakota farm. That is AgCo, the equipment manufacturer. That's their research farm just south of Grand Farm. So the PTI farm at North Dakota is looking pretty good. We had a chance to look at wheat, barley, some soybeans, as well as corn.
Are you at a park right now? I see a little building in the back.
I did.
Okay.
I pulled over in a spot where I have some shade, and because otherwise I'm pretty sure my iPad's going to overheat as I'm on air today. So I tried to just find a quiet spot where I don't have a bunch of road traffic
Bridgette,
and so forth as well.
Somebody is streaking in the background there. I don't turn around. It's not a pleasant sight here on live stream.
I thought you were in studio. What are you doing back there?
Might be my double. Oh, man. So we had quite a bit of active weather in Lakes Country yesterday, packing quite a bit of wind and heavy rainfall. In fact, over an inch of rain fell from near Wahpeton, Hankinson area through about the Frazee Elbow Lake area. So quite a bit of precip into Lakes Country and even some wind damage as well out around the Frazee area, Otter Tail. It was, some trees uprooted. It was pretty nasty. We escaped another one here in the FM area.
That's nice. We don't need the wind.
Yeah.
I also picked up as we got further down into South Dakota, there was quite a bit of wind damage down there as well. Hearing reports of 95-mile-an-hour winds coming off the Coteau Hills that are out down by Sisseton.
Mm-hmm.
And in the area right around Scotland, South Dakota, 7 tornadoes, but only 1 touched down. I have not gotten a damage report on that, but just
Wow.
things that I've been picking up through social media, eyewitness reports, that type of thing.
Right. And even further south down into areas of Nebraska, western Iowa, they had 90-plus mile-an-hour winds. Unbelievable tree damage in some of the older neighborhoods there, and there's still quite a few people without power down to our south with 90-plus degree weather. So, yeah, we lucked out, and we have for most of this from this spring into summer, really.
So far, so good. Here's one thing, though, to keep in mind. You have certain areas, I know Justin's felt this for a bit, but we'd like to see some rainfall. There was a line probably somewhere around Amenia, Arthur, North Dakota, because I know a farmer at Amenia said he had just over 3/4 of an inch of rain. I would have liked to have seen some of that. I only got a 1/4 inch of rain yesterday at Hunter, so we take a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, there's more in the forecast for next week. That's the good news, and much cooler weather for next week as well. So if you're in need for rain, that's next week. If you're in need for cooler weather, that's next week as well. But today, we're looking at pretty decent weather out there today if you like the heat. Currently low to mid 80s across the area. We'll make it up into the upper 80s to near 90 with a light breeze out of the north. Tonight, clear skies, mid 60s. And tomorrow, another day with light winds, but a little bit warmer. Highs right around 90 or so. And then to start off the weekend, we'll have a cold front moving into the state from the north on Saturday. So there will be a big difference in temps across the state from north to south. We'll have highs on Saturday here in the FM area in the upper 80s, cooler in the northern valley. And then a chance for storms coming in here as we head into Saturday evening. Some of those could be on the strong side, but behind that, we're looking at cooler weather for Sunday with highs only in the 70s. So... And next week looks much cooler as well. So if you get a little break from the heat and humidity that we've had recently.
Well,
It'll be nice to get a little relief.
it's been good, though, as far as like growing degree units and so forth when it comes to our corn crop and so forth. We had a lot of late planted corn. And I mean, I looked at stuff today that hasn't tasseled yet. So we would be okay with an extended amount of time where it's going to be nice and warm. In fact, our guest today is Daryl Ritchison. He is the North Dakota State Climatologist as well as the director of NDON, North Dakota Ag Weather Network. And I have a request already from a group of crop consultants. They want to start the hashtag November 1st frost free. So if you want to pass that on to Daryl when he comes on, Dean, we'd really like to see that we don't have to worry about a frost for a while. And don't worry, you two are going to be held to that as well.
Oh, well, wait a minute. I haven't even
I
looked.
think the 8-ball got us.
The 8-ball
got
said
us
we were
2
good.
weeks into October.
It did. We're shooting for accuracy on that one.
But you're looking for November 1st? I think that's a long shot. Good luck.
Well, we've had this before. It would be okay if it happened again.
We've also had snow on Halloween.
We have, and in fact, in talking with some folks this morning who moved here from out of state, I said, "How do you feel about combining corn in March?" That was not met with a great amount of enthusiasm. I got to say, 'Cause we have done that where our corn didn't finish out and it was wet and sat in the fields at a high moisture, and combined in March, mostly at night, because during the day the sun would come out and things would soften up and you would get the snow on the cobs that would melt into the cobs so that it was wet again. And also if you had snow in the fields, the snow banks would get soft, so you had to wait until night till it would freeze, and then during the night you could combine and get out into the field and bring that corn in. So I've seen that a couple times in my career. I don't recommend it.
That had to be
It's
miserable.
not awesome.
Oh.
Yes.
Is
yes,
a crop
it is.
fine if it overwinters?
It can, if you have good standability in your corn stalks, so you're not dropping cobs, like you don't want them to fall off the plant or tip down and kernels dry out and fall off the cob. So you really want to make sure that your plants do have good standability for as long as possible throughout that situation.
Okay. And is that just corn, or are there other thing like can are beans fine the next year, or sunflower seeds or sunflowers the next year fine?
Sunflowers, that happens if you get to wet during fall harvest. I've seen sunflowers that had to be combined in the spring. I wouldn't suggest that for soybeans, because soybeans tend to get covered by snow and then they break down and you can't get your header low enough on the ground to pick those up once they've started to break down. So that's kind of the hope, is that you don't have that problem. If with corn, if your ear is too far up and then that breaks above, or the line of where it breaks is below the ear, so then your ear falls on the ground, then you can't pick that up with the combine. So there's a number of things to think about. I can tell you we're at a good spot for moisture in the field, judging by the amount of mud on my shoes, because I was just right west of Castleton. But the soybeans are really shallowly rooted right now because we've had so much moisture. If you grab a plant, it just pops right out. It doesn't have a lot of root system. It hasn't had to strain itself to go look for moisture.
Yeah, I suppose
Yay.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And water hemp, by the way. Holy water hemp Batman. I mean, that's why we didn't have as much last year in a drier summer, because it's not called dry hemp. It is water hemp, and it's everywhere.
So what does that do for, when water hemp is more prevalent in the field, do you just go back out and spray it if you can, or what's that doing to a crop? Is it really affect it pretty hard?
So let's talk about wheat right now. We've got wheat that's maturing, or even barley. And so you've got your crop canopy, and now you might see some water hemp that's poking through. Even though you sprayed your crop earlier in the season, what may have happened is water hemp will take advantage of any moisture and any sunlight, and it will germinate throughout the entire growing season. It's not just an early season germination. And so now you've got seeds that are germinating after there was an application of herbicide. There's probably not a residual layer there left anymore because of the stage of the crop, the length of season that the product's been out in the field. So you have water hemp up above the canopy. What you don't want to do is, because that stuff is so tall, it's not going to take a herbicide treatment very well. So you don't want to run your crop down. So you're not going to take a sprayer out there by ground. You're not going to take a sprayer by air, because this crop staging is too far along. There's always pre-harvest intervals, meaning that from the time that you spray until you can combine, you have to have enough days in between there for the metabolization of any herbicide that you use. Also, when that water hemp is that big, you're not going to do a great job of controlling it. So what you're going to do is you're going to spray it. It's going to halfway die and laugh at you. So instead of spraying it now, wait, get through harvest and have a better plan of attack to go get it after the fact, because you don't want to promote the potential of resistance.
I see. And what about in terms of harvest at the end of the year? Does it kind of die off and just become pretty brittle or whatnot, disappear? Or is that going to be something that's going to kind of gum up the combine or bog it down a little bit if there's too much of it mixed in with the crop? What's that look like?
Some weeds do, some will dry down and will just thrash right through a combine. But I remember in the days when I first started out of college in the late 90s, we had a lot of nightshade. And nightshade can be identified by very bright little berries on it. And those berries, birds love to eat them. So they'd eat them, fly away, and poop them out somewhere. And so you'd have more nightshade. But those little red berries would start going through the header in your machine and they would smear and it would get greasy and they didn't really thrash through there very well and they would gum up the insides of your machines. So there are some weeds that just are way worse to deal with than others. We've talked about Palmer amaranth before. We don't have a prevalence of it here in the valley, but Palmer amaranth, under the right growing conditions, can grow about 6 inches in a 24-hour period. This usually happens in like Georgia, southern states where they have hotter temperatures, longer days, or longer hot temperatures at night. We generally will cool off. They'll stay warmer throughout the night. But when you're talking a plant that can grow 6 inches in a time frame and can reach heights of 10 to 12 feet tall and has a stalk diameter of 2 to 3 inches, you run into a patch of that, that's going to stop your combine. Your header is not going to go through that. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, weeds will affect harvest in a variety of ways.
Interesting. Well, coming up on the show here, like Bridgette was teasing here at the beginning of the show, Daryl Ritchison, he's going to be joining us as the North Dakota State Climatologist and the director of NDON. And if you have any questions for him or us, feel free to give us a call on the Red Wing Shoo line. That's 701-293-9000. Emails to the program, that's weatherorag@flagfamily.com. A couple of the ag topics we'll touch on after we visit with Daryl for a little bit will be tips for healthy rodeo horses, as well as a bird flu state of emergency and human cases. We'll touch on those coming up here within the hour, but we'll get caught up with the American Ag Network. And again, when we come back, Daryl Ritchison, North Dakota State Climatologist and Director of NDON, will be joining us. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
And a welcome back to Weather Nag in Focus. Thanks for joining us. And thank you to some of our Here We Grow sponsors. Wanted to very much say thank you to the Red River Retention Authority. They were kind enough to have me at their meeting yesterday, and that was their partner summit in East Grand Forks. The lunch was good. I probably should have brought extras for you guys. Sorry. I'll do that next time. All right. And then also to Gowan Company, they have sponsored us with a Fiance fungicide in our field. We did it last year on soybeans, this year on corn, and frankly, the farm I was just on, Walking Fields, and had some Fiance on it as well. So thanks to Gowan Company, that is a 2-mode of action fungicide to be used across multiple crops. Fits this area really well, especially because we know we've had some white mold being sprayed already. And boy, I would have to double check the label to make sure it's got a label for dry edible beans, because I feel like our edible bean crop is going to need a lot of fungicide applications this year. Meanwhile, someone who is not going to need a lot of introduction is our guest today, and that is Daryl Ritchison. Daryl is now the North Dakota climatologist, state climatologist, but also he is the director of NDOT, North Dakota Ag Weather Network. Daryl, how are you today?
I'm doing very good. It's always good when people notice I have 2 full-time jobs.
You do. You are not underemployed by any means. So what's the difference? Why do you have 2 jobs?
That's a good question. Really sadly, our past state climatologist, Adnan Accuse, passed away earlier this year. And so I just took over his position. NDSU, I think correctly so, just thought it'd be best now that we could just put all of the weather positions into one, and then I would handle both positions. I do have a staff that does assist me, and I also picked up his classes, so I'm teaching. Had to teach weather this past spring, and I am teaching a class this fall and again next spring too.
But you are busy. Holy moly.
I will say in many ways the classes take up the most of my existence once that starts. And sadly, it is now August today. And so it's still me keep passing the buck going, why? That's next month. That's next month.
Anymore.
I can't say that anymore. Classes start this month. And right now, what was I told yesterday? I think there's already 300 students enrolled in my fall class.
What classes are you teaching?
This fall, it's a class called Wonders of Weather. It's a 115 weather course. And then next spring, which I did teach this past spring, is the main weather course, which is a requirement for a lot of the folks in ag or the School of Natural Resource Sciences. That's just weather and climate course. That's a 217 course. And again, that's required by a lot of majors. So it's a little, upscale weather course than what I'll be teaching this fall.
Nice.
Okay, hold on. As someone who graduated with an education degree but was associated with College of Ag, because ag education, I didn't have to take that weather course. What are you doing there? Why is that important to folks that are majoring in ag?
For all the reasons why I'm on your show today, I would say. Because the whole world of ag is 100% dependent on the weather. So you get a lot of basic foundations of weather. You understand weather. I did a couple of years ago teach a graduate level course in NDON. So all of the students working on masters or PhDs to better understand what's available in NDON, some data analysis of weather, those types of things were taught in that class that I taught a couple of years ago. But because I have these other 2 classes, they thought having 2 full-time jobs and teaching, they might want to drop a weather course from my schedule, so I no longer have to teach that graduate level class.
I like the fact that all of these classes now exist that I didn't even know were there. So way to change things up, which kind of brings me to that.
Here's the good news for you is, both the fall class and next spring class is both in person and online. So you can actually take this course from me and just take it on the online component of it. And then you will be able to compete with these 2 other guys next to me if you take my class. You'll become that good of a meteorologist.
No. I have a better idea.
Heck, we should sit in just for a little brush up, Justin.
We should do this. The 3 of us take it like on a pass fail, because if the 3 of us fail, Daryl is going to hold that over forever.
I have no comment on what grade I would give you.
Oh man. Okay, that's a good point. So historically speaking, Daryl, what do as the state climatologist, how do you reach out to others? Do you have some sort of national affiliation that you need to be a part of? Are there state climatologists everywhere? And what are the qualifications to do that? What's your job role?
There are 47 of the 50 states currently have a state climatologist, if my latest data is correct. And there is actually the American Association of State Climatologists, the AASC. You do not necessarily have to be a state climatologist to be a part of that. You usually should be within the state climate office realm. Many states like Minnesota have more than, they have a state climatologist, but they have assistant and associate state climatologists, which is the case in Minnesota. A lot of states like North Dakota, there's just the state climatologist, in some ways is the state climatologist office all in all, but I do currently have an assistant that helps me quite a bit. She's a recent graduate from the University of North Dakota. Cassidy Holt, also I've mentioned her name out loud. She helps me quite a bit in all of my different realms. We try to maintain the integrity of the state. We work with the drought monitor, which most farmers are probably very familiar with. Sometimes disaster assistance in the sense of, can you write a report? Can you get the data for that? Say if the governor of North Dakota, which did yesterday, in fact, Governor Burgum issued a declaration. I was not involved with that one, but historically, sometimes state climatologist has that role. Of course, we get a lot of inquiries of just, even in my role as the director of NDON, hey, Daryl, do you have the weather data for X for this period to this period? Sometimes it's used for lawsuits, but a lot of times it's just inquiries of interest. What's the average frost date for this and that? I had a meeting this morning with someone from the National Centers of Environmental Information dealing with climate assessment things in North Dakota. And so it's a very open-ended, broad-ranging role that you have. And some of it mixed in with my director of NDON, which is really the number one question people ask of me lately. Oh, so you're not the director of NDON anymore? And I go, no, I still have that role. That is actually still my principal duties. My secondary duty in some ways is state climatologist, not the reverse. And I'm always flattered that people are concerned, but I'm serving in both roles.
And for those, Daryl, that aren't familiar, I'm sure most people are, but that aren't familiar with NDON, how many sites are there across the area?
We just installed yesterday, I do believe was our 206th station. Forgive me for not knowing the exact number, but my staff is so incredibly efficient. But that station yesterday was up by Bremen, North Dakota, so in the far northeast corner of Wells County. So it'd be south of the lake of Devil's Lake, and actually the city too.
Okay.
Up there, Bremen is actually the area where they drain out of Devil's Lake into the Cheyenne. The pumps that do that is right pretty close to where our station is. So a lot of people are fascinated with that. That station's associated with a grant I have with the Army Corps of Engineers that we're placing stations in the upper Missouri River Basin. Principal purpose for the Army Corps is winter precipitation, so the all-season gauge. I can't tell you I can't tell you it snowed 5 inches, right, although we do have sensors that could possibly tell you that. That really needs to be done by a human, but I can tell you what the precipitation was in the snow. And as I always tell people, I have to shovel snow like everyone else, and shoveling 6 inches is harder than 2 inches, but really the important element of snow is the precipitation. What's the SWE, the snow water equivalent? What is in that snow? Because that is by far the most important thing about snowfall, and that's what these gauges can actually measure. So as part of that grant is what we've been working on.
Awesome. Now, is NDON the biggest network out of all the 47 states that have this?
Well, there would be 47 state climatology offices. Not that many states have a state mesonet.
Gotcha.
So a little bit lesser
you.
than that. I do believe we are the largest, what I would consider a true mesonet in the United States, in the sense that everything we do is apples to apples. I think there might be a mesonet larger than us, but they're using different sensory types, and then you're not really a mesonet, because Bremen yesterday is about 30 miles from our Harvey station and about 30 miles from our McHenry station. What's difference? Is it the sensor? Because different sensor types might have a plus or minus 2 degree reading difference. And in turn, was the weather there, or are the crops there ahead or behind status based on this, based on the sensor, or what was it, the weather? Because all of our equipment is calibrated, it works exactly the same. The difference is weather, not the sensor. And that is absolutely critical when you're doing crop disease forecasting. If you need, you guys were talking about fungicide before this, we have tools for that. And the diseases, we need to know that area is more prone to it because of the weather, not because the sensors are different. And that's crucial when you have a mesonet, that we're using exactly the same equipment. And so Minnesota is now joining us and has a large grant to add end-on stations in Minnesota. They're, of course, using our programming, our equipment. They're building them, and they're going to be doing the maintenance on them, but they're joining our network. So everyone in Minnesota, North Dakota, and our few stations in Montana, everything will be exactly the same.
Well, now we're coming up on the bottom of the hour break. When we come back, I want to touch on, you're talking about sensors and how all of the sensors and end-on are the same and calibrated the same. Is that the same for the National Weather Service? We've talked about the Hector effect here on air, and when we come back, we'll have Daryl explain more on that. Coming up here right after the break. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus, 1:36 in the afternoon. And our guest today, Daryl Ritchison. He's the North Dakota State Climatologist and Director of NDAWN. And Daryl, I know we've chatted quite a bit, and me and Justin have joked, but not so much tongue-in-cheek, about the Hector effect. And you were talking about how all your sensors for NDAWN are the same. Are the sensors they use for NDAWN different than the National Weather Service sensors, and if so, why?
There's different manufacturers, and there's just different types out there. The ASOS is the Automatic Surface Observation System, which is Hector International. What's at Moorhead is called an AWOS, an Automatic Weather Observation Station, so it's slight little different. All the ASOSs in the United States, to my knowledge, are switching to the same sensor that we use.
Oh, okay.
That we use. The problem at Hector, I don't think so much as the sensor. Something's wrong, and the airport's been reading anywhere from 2 to 4 degrees just too warm.
Right.
If it's an electronic issue, I'm not as familiar with how everything works electronically as I do with my own systems, of course. It's been clearly wrong, and so a lot of the records, a lot of things that have been set since it broke last year in March are going to be corrected by the State Climate Office. Matter of fact, the State Climate Office no longer recognizes Hector as the official climate source because it's clearly wrong.
Right.
If you're 3 degrees too warm every day, you're going to set records. You're going to set monthly records. You're going to set yearly records. For example, in 2023, Hector, from memory, hit 90 29 times, but we only hit 14, which is the average.
Wow.
So again, when you're 3-4
That's a
degrees,
big difference.
Oh, it's a big difference. And also, you're breaking a yearly record. Last winter, we broke the record for the warmest winter, but Hector broke it by like 5 degrees. Our data only broke it by 2 degrees. And so that's all those records that are being changed, and the North Dakota State Climate Office doesn't recognize. In fact, Dean, this morning, before I came here, I actually wrote yet another letter to the National Centers of Environmental Information and Hector International, and then the Weather Service in Grand Forks about, I know you guys have made some adjustments. It's a little bit better. It's still in air. Very respectfully, we need to fix this. We need to change all of this data and fix the records, and let's work together and let's get this done. And I think eventually we will. I understand there's a little bit of a bureaucracy that needs to go through.
There always is.
But it's been very frustrating. Like the ice storm that we had at Christmas. The airport was 34, 35 degrees. Well, the real temperature is 31, 32. So if it was 34, 35, we would have had probably no icing at all. But it was one of those examples, as at the time I had to tell so many agencies, so many people, just ignore the airport, use the NDAWN, use these other sensors. It is below freezing. This is going to be a bad event, which it was in many areas. So sometimes 2 degrees matters. And it does certainly over the course of a year, let alone, in a day, 88, 86, what's the difference? But when you do it every day, it makes a difference.
Yeah, no doubt.
So you said that the airport is no longer the official spot to record the temperatures. Where's the official spot? Is it like at Dean's backyard, or what are we using now?
Fargo and Dawn.
Okay.
The Fargo site. And again, this is the State Climate Office. We have control of the climate data in the state of North Dakota. I'm trying to get the federal government to also recognize the clear air up at Hector. I have the utmost respect. I cannot even begin to tell you how much respect I have for these people. It's not a personal issue. My principal duty as a state climatologist is the integrity of the data in the state of North Dakota, and that data has no integrity. It is clearly wrong and inaccurate, so I'm just trying to fix that. So Fargo has the second longest climate record in the state of North Dakota, and of course we want to maintain a very good record.
And
so
go ahead, Bridgette.
Oh, no, go ahead, Dean, because I have a very different question for Daryl. So please continue with your weather.
And I want to just make sure I heard him right. You said the National Weather Service, they are eventually switching over, and it might take some time, to the sensors that you are using, correct?
Well, at least at a minimum, this period of time since March 7th of 2023 that Hector has been off.
Okay.
It's been, there are days it's off by 7 degrees. That's huge.
Yeah.
So at a minimum, I'm just trying to make the switch permanent, but that switch has not occurred. But a lot of records that you may have heard about are not official records. There's already As of a couple of days ago, there, at least from the federal level, there has been a flag placed on Hector since March of 2023 that the data is questionable.
Okay, all right.
For you and Justin and other meteorologists that deal with it,
Right.
that's, at least you know
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
So this may be a very different question for you, Daryl, but when I first moved to Fargo and I started watching the news, you were at the time, I think you were just getting started as the weather guy on my TV station. And now you're the state climatologist. What do you like differently, or what do you miss from doing the weather on TV to being very much an administrative teacher, different situation?
As politely as I can say this, I do not miss my TV days at all. I really don't. I mean, it's been 10 years now. I enjoyed it. I am the luckiest human being on earth. I have worked for 35 years in meteorology and have loved my job every single day. But I enjoy what I'm doing now far, far more than what I did when I did TV.
I thought he was going to say not wearing makeup.
That I also enjoy.
That's my biggest. That's the one thing I don't miss.
Daryl,
so
let's
I've
touch a
been
little
getting
bit
this-
more. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Just
Bridget. You got listener
one-
messages.
I do. One thing, Justin, that I needed to make sure to tell Daryl is that his favorite NDON site in Brockett, North Dakota, reports in that all is well. Austin is keeping a very close eye on it for you via Twitter and so forth. But just wanted to let you know
if
that.
Austin is listening, Austin still has a cool little surprise coming to that weather station here in the next few weeks. Matter of fact, some of my staff is up there visiting him today to begin the process of adding a special toy to Brockett.
Aw.
Daryl, tell me a little bit more about NDON. You guys got a website. It's public information. What can people get, and what's the significance of that data that you're providing from the network?
Well, we're the North Dakota Agricultural Weather Network. Our data is used for everything weather-wise. But in agriculture, you guys were talking about fungicide as an example before I came on the air. We have tools on there that can really pre-forecast when fungicide is going to be needed. When are certain crop disease going to actually form? I heard a white mold mentioned before we went in the air. We are working on a white mold tool, for example, on soybeans. A couple of years ago, as an example, I was working on a group of people on some stations. It was a $100,000 plan. And when I went down there, I actually asked, why is everyone spraying their soybeans today? And they go, wow, well, geez, the obvious, Daryl, we've had a lot of white mold problems the last 2 or 3 years. And I said, yeah, but it's 85 degrees outside and relative humidity is 20%. All your fungicide is evaporating as it's going into the air. And so everything you're spraying today is complete waste of time.
And money.
And so, it depends on what type of fungicide you use, but, it's approximately $20 an acre. And so I said, this area is wasting like $1 or $2 million today. And a guy said across the table from me, said, I think it's higher than that, Daryl. And I go, well, that's a tool. We have tools online that fungicide didn't need to be spread at that particular time. Plus they're doing it on a day they should not have been applying fungicide. And so really it's a weather risk management tool in the sense it's a value proposition of saving farmers money. You can time your spraying. Hey, I spray fungicide every Tuesday. My dad did it. My grandfather did it. Hey, that's great. Keep doing it. But if you look at our data for a while, you might discover, you don't need to do it this week. Or, you might need to do it 2 times this week, as an example. So it's bringing that return on investment. If you invest in me, what are you getting back, for you and your profitability? Our goal is to make farmers as profitable as possible. And that's one of the reasons I love my job is helping others maintain profits. There's good years and bad years, but that's just a small example, again, of some of the things that NDON does in agriculture. And it's basic stuff this year. We are a good 150 growing degree day units behind last year for the corn crop. Last year, the corn crop barely made it to black layer, and thank goodness we had a warm September or we wouldn't have made it. My number one thing in the last 4 days since I've gotten back from vacation, Why, Daryl, we are behind. And then we have this cool down next week. That's not going to give us the growing degree day units where we are sitting at. And I go, I think the second half of the month is going to warm up. But yeah, we need a later than average first freeze this year. We have to go at least until October 1st like we did last year. It's going to be a nail biter. Soybeans tend to be doing really, really well. A lot of the small grains are doing really well this year. Some other problems, fungicide and stuff. But it's really the corn crop this year because we're even behind last year, and last year was a tough sell. Yeah. And that's something that we can't change the weather, but at least we know where we're at because Endon, you can pick your exact planting date, know exactly where you are. Here's where we were last year. Here's the 5-year average. This is what we need in the next 6 to 8 weeks, which is really, to me, 3 or 4 degrees above average. I don't know if we're going to. It's going to be really, really tough. But again, it's a tool. We have soybean tools for the same thing. Which cultivar should I plant? My entire soybean crop got wiped out, but it's still June 11th or 12th, say. But if I plant this cultivar with this average temperatures, I could probably get away with that. It's those little tiny tools that sometimes people don't think of that you can determine by using NDOT.
You've also done that like with the potato. There's a potato awareness network as well for talking about fungicide and insecticide as applications. So you've done a lot to work with a variety of crops in the state of North Dakota.
Yes, and it was really the potato growers in many ways we can thank why Endon even exists to the level that it does. So Endon was started at the regional extension centers in North Dakota. There was a potato farmer in northeastern North Dakota that goes, wow, if we could use these for a potato early and late blight, installed several stations in 1992, and then when the horrible, wet, rainy, cold summer of 1993 came, the potato growers credited Endon with saving the potato crop in North Dakota that year. Well, then other commodity groups go, oh, wow, we should do it. And then we had this rapid expansion of Endon in the mid to late 90s. And then recently with grant money and other things, we've had another rapid expansion. But I will forever thank the potato growers. I probably wouldn't be sitting in this chair if it wasn't for the potato growers in North Dakota.
Wow.
That's huge. And Daryl, from those of us in ag who use Endon all the time, farmers, agronomists, crop consultants, the add-ons that you provide with that, the fact that it continually gets better, and I don't want to say more accurate because it's always been more accurate, but more available information is tremendous. So thank you for that. And for those who don't use it, how should they find Endon, and what are the different variety of ways they can contact you?
Well, they can contact me if you go to endon.org, O-R-G, that'll take us to our main older website that's not mobile compliant. I have programmers working on that. You will see some big changes in the next couple of years with our website delivering. But there's a contact me on there. Please contact me. Our inversion app, which is on the app stores, there's a contact for me on that if you use our inversion app for spraying or just the regular weather. Endon.info, so .info, that goes to our mobile compliance site. And I know there's a little confusion with the two websites, but we temporarily here for a few years want to give people that use iPhones. We found out recently that now 80% of our use is on an iPhone, not 50-50 Android iPhone. It's 80% on iOS, which is funny. So we wanted to create this public website that's mobile compliant website. So not everything's on there, but there is. But those are the best ways. And then contact me. Even if you typed in Daryl Ritchison, I'm all over the place. You can find my contact. And don't be afraid to email me. If you're the last farmer in North Dakota that doesn't have my cell number, ask someone across the street, and they probably have my cell number. Every time someone goes, hey, Daryl, I got your cell number from so-and-so, and he said it was okay if I call you, I always tease that person and go, so you're the last farmer in North Dakota that didn't have my cell number. Well, good for you.
Oh my God, I'm going to use that line because I feel like it's the same way. I just thought I'd call. You probably don't know who I am, but I got your number from somebody else. Really?
Oh.
Oh, well.
Well, that person got it from someone who got it from someone who got it from someone. I've heard that too. And usually I recognize all the names and I go, oh, okay. Very, very entertaining. But my wife will give me the evil eye, but I'll be in bed and my phone will ring and I'll pick it up. And my wife, and I go, dear, this is like, 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes.
And is it ever really 2 minutes?
Sometimes I can keep it under 5.
Okay.
But not always. So, but anyway, please, I'm here to help. And if you need any assistance or one of my staff under me, we're an incredible team. We're really here to help everyone out.
Call me for Daryl's number. I'll help you out.
Maybe I should set up a 1-800 number. 1-800 call Daryl. It's just
There you go.
Oh, Daryl Ritchison, thank you so much for joining us. You are always a sheer delight to have in studio. So much appreciated in all the work that you do.
I would like to do this almost every day. This is
thinking
so much fun.
We've got to book Daryl once a week, Bridgette. He can be our weekly guest.
This is always a blast. I couldn't guarantee you I'd come to studio, but I love coming here because, my goodness, I worked in the media for 25 years. This is like the most beautiful studio on the planet Earth.
Isn't it?
It's just like,
Yes.
How do you guys lucky? I never had this when I did this.
We never had windows to look out. I know.
I barely still do. I have cameras now. So. But anyway, thanks for having me. This is always a joy.
Yeah, appreciate it, Daryl.
Yeah. Well, Daryl, thank you again for coming in today. When we come back, we'll have a quick recap on the weather. I don't know if we'll have any time for ag topics, but we'll definitely do a quick recap of the weather coming up right after the break.
Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. It is thrilling to have you here, and it was to have our guest here as well. That was Daryl Ritchison. He is our state climatologist as well as the director for NDON. Anytime Daryl joins us, it is a fabulous conversation. And probably the one question that I didn't ask him, but I'm going to have to ask Dean and Justin. What do you think has changed in what y'all did in school between then and now? I wonder what Daryl's going to have on his curriculum that the guys would say, that's different than what we thought we were going to be learning. So be something new every time.
And I would be interested in sitting in on one of the classes to see how is it different? How is it taught differently now than it was? And this is a long time. We're talking back in the, we'll just say back in the early 90s, mid 90s.
Volunteer us to be guest speakers. I'm sure we could be helpful in shaping young minds, Dean.
Are you sure you want that?
He freezes up. He's like, I don't think we should talk to people that
loud. Oh, you know what, though? It's funny because I went back to my alma mater years ago when I was working in TV, and they had a broadcast meteorology class, and I went back and told the kids this is what it's really like. I mean, you can think it's all great, and a lot of it is, but you know, you're not diving. You're diving into forecasting, but a lot of it's presentation and a lot of it's looks, and that still baffles me how I ever worked on TV, but that's what makeup does. And it's just it's fun to educate the younger kids on what the meteorology career is really like. So maybe we can be guest speakers at one of Daryl's classes. That might not be a bad idea.
Never know.
That might not be a bad
I go
idea.
back and help out with an Ag Econ sales class. So
there you go. Well, for Bridgette, for myself, and for Justin, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Don't go anywhere. The Jay Thomas Show is coming up next.